Travis d'Arnaud is gone, signing a 2-year deal with the Angels in free agency. What does this mean for the Atlanta Braves in 2025? Let's talk about it. Yes, welcome on in to Braves Today for Wednesday, November 13th, your source of news, notes, and updates on your Atlanta Braves. I'm your host, Lindsay Crosby. You can follow me on Twitter at Crosby Baseball. You can follow the show on Twitter, Braves_today. We have a Facebook page and Instagram as well. You can find all of the written work, bravestoday.com. It's the Braves Today Substack. This is both a podcast and a newsletter. And Braves fans got some really tough news yesterday with 3 things all happening, all connected, happening within the span of about an hour. Alex Anthopoulos goes on 680 The Fan and explains the reason that they declined Travis d'Arnaud's $8 million club option for 2025 was they needed the financial flexibility to address not having Ronald Acuna Jr., not having Spencer Strider, not having Joe Jimenez to start the year. Just 30 minutes later, roughly, Travis d'Arnaud posts a goodbye message to Atlanta on his Instagram that reads, quote, "Atlanta, thank you for everything. Ever since my brother played here," his brother Chase d'Arnaud, "you have been amazing to me and my family. I feel like I was not only part of the team, but part of the city. Thank you to all the fans, the coaches, the staff, and most importantly, the players. I made a lot of lifelong friendships and hope for nothing but the best always. Every one of y'all made driving to the field feel like a blessing. I will forever be grateful for everything. World champs for life." And so, obviously, Braves Twitter's, what's going on? Travis d'Arnaud, this is his goodbye message. Why did this come up today? And I actually posted the Alex Anthopoulos thing. I was like, are these connected? And then, as he's wont to do, Jeff Passan, minutes later, drops the news that Travis d'Arnaud and the Los Angeles Angels are in agreement on a 2-year, $12 million contract. The Angels announced it just 30 minutes later. The graphic, all of the stuff, it is official. So Travis d'Arnaud is joining the Los Angeles Angels. And this is a Braves podcast, but quickly, I want to talk about the Travis d'Arnaud side of this because it's important to remember he was here for 5 years. And Travis d'Arnaud was the starter for this team before taking a backseat to Sean Murphy, right? 2020, his first year here, he played in 44 of our 60 games, batted .321. Stats are so weird in that year, right? 2021, he was hurt for multiple months. Atlanta went through 7 catchers. I believe it's 7 catchers that year. And that's something that Alex Anthopoulos talks about now. He mentioned in that same end of season press conference, they never think they can have enough catchers because they're scarred by what happened in that 2021 season. But Travis, he only gets in 60 regular season games. He only bats, he bats .220 in 2021. But he comes back before the postseason starts. He's in the lineup for every single pitch of the postseason to win a championship. He bats .292 with 2 home runs in the World Series. Jorge Soler's home run gets a lot of attention. Freddie Freeman gets a lot of attention for what he did in the World Series. Travis d'Arnaud went 7-24, again, with 2 homers, caught every single pitch of that entire postseason, but in the World Series specifically, was very good for Atlanta. And then after all of this, he's an all-star in 2022, playing in 107 games, batting .268, and then he takes a step back. Sean Murphy's acquired. Travis becomes the backup that turns into a co-starter, right? He plays in 74 games in 23, 99 games in 24, bats .225 and .238, but double-digit home runs in the last 3 years in Atlanta. And he's going to be, his message was right. He's going to be remembered as one of the instrumental pieces in that World Series championship. And I'm of the opinion that Travis d'Arnaud will probably never need to buy his own beer in the city of Atlanta again. The fans love him. The other players love him. The coaching staff loved him. Everybody loved him, right? The reason this was made, why they didn't pick up his $8 million option, was money. Was when you look at the team's payroll right now, and we're going to do a payroll show probably tomorrow, where we get more in depth as to the different financial directions this offseason can go. Atlanta's estimated to be sitting on a $228 million luxury tax payroll. The luxury tax threshold, the first one's at $241. If they break that threshold, which we expect they will, it would be the third consecutive year, and they would pay a 50% overage on every dollar over $241 million on the luxury tax payroll. Not the cash payroll, the luxury tax payroll. They said, we need that $8 million so that we can figure out what to do going forward. And from the Travis d'Arnaud perspective of him with LA, I like what this does for that roster, right? This is something where Logan O'Hoppe is the starting catcher for the Angels. He's not expected to be traded. He's going to stick around. He is a piece of their core. He doesn't turn 25 until before pitchers and catchers report next year. He is the future for them. He's batted .243 across parts of 3 years for them. But he's young. And bringing in Travis d'Arnaud, a veteran, a well-respected veteran, who, although his defensive skills aren't what they used to be, is considered to be one of the smarter catchers in the game. And I'll remind everybody, you had Sean Murphy, you had Sal Fasano, the catching coordinator. The person who ran the game planning meetings was Travis d'Arnaud. Travis d'Arnaud ran those meetings. Sean Murphy didn't run the meetings. Sal Fasano didn't run the meetings. Travis d'Arnaud ran the meetings. Travis d'Arnaud is now going to be able to work with this young Angels roster, to work with this young Angels pitching staff, and is in a position to, if they are ever going to get out of the hole they are in, which feels unlikely for as long as they have to deal with the giant albatross of a contract of Anthony Rendon and his just lack of ability. If they're ever able to get back into competitiveness, it's going to be based on keeping Mike Trout healthy and getting that pitching staff a little bit better than what it's been before, while all of these young position players get comfortable. Your Zach Neto, who had surgery and might miss the start of the season. Can Joe Adell finally figured out? Nolan Shonwell. We're expecting second baseman Christian Moore, last year's first rounder, to be up sometime next season, right? Young position player group, but now you have a well-respected veteran manager in Ron Washington in his second season. You have Travis d'Arnaud. They have hired Sal Fasano. Sal Fasano was brought in as assistant pitching coach, is the official title, but he is going to be working on the game planning and a lot of the stuff that he did here in Atlanta. We made a special position for him. Catching coordinator was not a position on the coaching staff before Sal Fasano, and we're not going to fill that with anybody else. Rather than make a new position, the Angels are just giving him the assistant pitching coach title, and his job is to make the pitchers better through improving the catching. It's like how you can fix your run differential by either scoring more runs or preventing runs with defense. It's the same idea, but on the pitching side, right? You can improve your pitching incrementally by having better catching, better framing, better blocking, caught stealing, pop, all that good stuff. So that's what Fasano is joining the Angels to do. I like this move for the Angels. I think this is very smart. I do think it was very obvious that Atlanta was not going to give Travis this type of money, right? When you look at the situation, and again, we're going to get into payroll tomorrow in depth, but AA told us payroll was going to increase. It's increased every year since he's been here, so I'm inclined to believe this, even if we don't necessarily believe some of the other things that came out of that press conference. But they've got to figure out the outfield. They've got to reinforce the rotation. And they might need to figure out something to do at catcher. I like this move for the Angels. As a fan, I hate not having Travis d'Arnaud. I legitimately thought he was a good player. I enjoyed him here. He spent a surprising amount of time, more so than I expected when they signed him prior to 2020. More time than I expected them to have him here. You have a catcher signed long-term in Sean Murphy. And next segment, we're going to get into what Atlanta does, one, with Sean Murphy, and two, behind Sean Murphy. Some of the different options you have there. But I want to focus this first segment on what Travis d'Arnaud did, what he meant to Atlanta, what he meant to the fans, what he meant to the fan base. And just remembering some of the awesome things that Travis d'Arnaud did. The multi-home run game. He hit 3 home runs in a game this season. His Braves tenure, he batted .251 with 60 homers across 5 seasons. This is the best performance he's had with any team. I say that. He spent 1 year in Tampa Bay playing both first base and catching, and he batted .263 with 16 home runs, which would have projected out to more than the 60 in 5 years in Atlanta. But I'm going to say this was the best stretch of his career. His only Silver Slugger came in Atlanta in 2020. His only All-Star selection came in Atlanta in 2022. He's obviously not going to make the Hall of Fame. I don't even necessarily think he makes the Braves Hall of Fame. But he's going to be remembered as one of the better and one of the greater players that Atlanta's had in this modern kind of era. He'll be remembered probably right behind Brian McCann as one of the better catchers. And there's no way around it. You are a worse team for not having Travis d'Arnaud. In just a minute, we're going to get into what Atlanta does from here. Sean Murphy's expected play time. We're going to get into Chadwick Tromp, Drake Baldwin, or the field behind Sean Murphy. We'll do that next, right here on Braves Today. Welcome back to Braves Today. Lindsay Crosby talking about Travis d'Arnaud moving on from Atlanta to the Los Angeles Angels and where the Braves go from here. Real quick, before we get into the options behind him, I do want to thank our sponsor, Encase Cards. This is a custom card manufacturer. Really cool what they do. They take your source photos. For me, it was U Sports, right? My son plays t-ball. My daughter plays soccer. And so I submitted those images to Encase Cards. Their artists personalize those for my child. I let my kid pick a background. They put in stats, position, team name, all that cool stuff. Both sides of the card, front and back. And then they print it on high-quality cardstock. They slab it, and they ship them directly to you. So go check it out. Super cool. Encase Cards. That's NCASCcards.com. Okay, so you now have to figure out Travis d'Arnaud is gone. Sean Murphy is obviously your starter. His salary goes up this year. We've talked about that before. This is a year where now Sean Murphy's salary jumps to $15 million. And he is, he just now turned 30 years old. Okay. So this is when the usage of Sean Murphy should be increasing. And this is something where I genuinely wonder if a very small part of this by the front office was saving Brian Snitker from himself, because Snit couldn't help but establish the catching position as a timeshare. He loved Travis d'Arnaud. We all love Travis d'Arnaud. I get it. But we've talked about this on the show before. Sean Murphy does better when he plays often. And I think this is the season. One, I'm banking on a Sean Murphy rebound. I think Sean Murphy is going to be all-star caliber in 2025. And that's just, I think every sign points to they want to use him more heavily. And I believe that you're going to see that this season. look at a situation, a guy like Cal Raleigh out in Seattle. He is younger than Sean Murphy, but he started 125 games behind the plate, appeared in 10 more, had 1,100 innings at catcher. It's incredibly likely that this is going to be a situation where Sean Murphy starts 5 times in the spring, 5 times in a week in the spring. If you have a 6-game series, let's say you have a 6-game homestand, typically there's your getaway day. Obviously, Sunday is almost always a getaway day unless you're on Sunday Night Baseball. But if you have 5 night games and then a Sunday getaway day, in April, in May, I'm expecting Sean Murphy to probably catch 5 of those 6, probably the first 5 games, and then give him a day off. And I think you can be strategic with this, and you can utilize off days and things like that to give him extra rest, right? Where, let's say, if you have a getaway day before an off day, which is weird, but sometimes they do getaway days for off days. One, Atlanta doesn't like throwing the same catcher in a night game than a day game anyway. They want to relieve the load. But I think, two, you're in a situation where intentionally use the off day to double up on rest. Maybe it's something where you have an off day and then a series opener. They give him the series opener off so that you can have the off day, the series opener, 2 days off, and then he can catch for 5 straight days. I do believe early in the season, you'll see him probably catch 5 straight days, 5 straight games. Maybe when the summer gets here, the heat of the summer, it's 95 in Atlanta, that drops down to 4 straight games, right? He'll play 4 games, he'll get a day off, and then maybe he'll play that 6th game of the week. There's usually an off day around there somewhere. I think it's going to be something like that. And then as you get to the postseason, I think the expectation will shift back to Sean Murphy's going to catch every game, like Travis d'Arnaud did in 2021. You have enough off days. There's really not any day games after a night game, things like that. Whatever window you're in is usually the same window you're in. I think Sean Murphy's going to play 5 days a week. And I think we talked about this on the show. I'll link, I don't remember exactly what day it was, but we did a whole Sean Murphy show. In his career, he's done better when he's gotten that consistent playtime. And Brian Snitker, because of Murphy's struggles, because of d'Arnaud's ability to get hot, and just the previous history with him, Snit couldn't help but make it a timeshare and give them equal playtime. And I think that a small part of this, and Alex Anthopoulos will never admitted this, but if you give him truth serum, I would be willing to expect a small part of this is saving Snit from himself. You can't do a timeshare between Sean Murphy and Travis d'Arnaud if Travis d'Arnaud's not here. But what Atlanta does behind Sean Murphy, I think will be rather interesting. My expectation is that Chadwick Tromp will start the year as the backup to Sean Murphy. I know I saw so many Drake Baldwin season tweets and things like that, and don't get me wrong, I love Drake Baldwin. I've even backed off of the trade Drake Baldwin stuff. As soon as we started talking about Travis not coming back, I'm like, yep, then you are absolutely keeping Drake Baldwin. But here's the thing on this. AA has said, and we've played the audio on this show, AA has said you can never go wrong getting more development time for a young catcher. And when I pull these stats up, Drake Baldwin has 72 games in AAA last year, and he had 3 in 2023. So he has a grand total of 75 games in AAA. Now, he's been really good. He's batting .300 with an .892 OPS, 13 home runs in 75 games. But he caught 43 games in 2024. He caught 2 games in AAA in 2020. He's caught 45 games in AAA of that time. He DH'd quite a bit. His bat, I would argue his bat is probably ready. His defense likely is not. And in a situation of Chadwick Tromp does not have any more options. So if he doesn't make the roster, he's going to be gone. And he's respected enough where he would get picked up as a backup defensive first catcher somewhere else. I think it's almost obvious at this point what Atlanta's going to do with the catching position is Sean Murphy's going to play 5 days a week. Chadwick Tromp is the backup on the roster that's the expectation as of now, who will start once a week, maybe twice a week if you have a doubleheader, if you have 2 getaway days in 1 week, two early games, something like if Sean gets nicked up, something like that. Tromp will play twice a week, or maybe in the summer, when you get to the summer, Tromp will start twice a week while Murphy gets the rest of those. And that the best case scenario here, which is Murphy hits like I think he's capable of, like he did in that first half in 2023 when he played almost every game for a month straight while Travis was out with that concussion. You're fine with that. You're fine with Tromp playing once or twice a week, Murphy getting all of the rest of the starts, and hitting well. That allows Drake Baldwin to go to AAA and play almost every day. Because we're in agreement. The belief is his bat is ready. We don't know if his defense is, but Alex's comments, the organization strongly believes that more development time for a young catcher is vitally important. And you just don't have to take their word for it. You can go back to the history. This organization under Alex Anthopoulos has not liked using young catchers. The only real young catcher who's gotten playtime, significant playtime, under Alex Anthopoulos has been William Contreras. And he DH'd more than he caught, and then he got traded. And they moved on from him to bring in Sean Murphy. This is why you got Sean Murphy, to play 4 or 5 days a week. This is the time of his career and of his physical prime to use him like that, to ride him 5 days a week, which is not an unrealistic amount of starts. 5 starts a week is not an unrealistic amount of starts. I'll remind you, Cal Raleigh had over 1,000 innings over 1,100 innings behind the plate, started 125 games, and appeared in 10 more. I don't know if Sean Murphy gets to 125, but I feel like 115, 120 is probably a reasonable expectation for Sean Murphy. Now, if Murphy slumps, if he has struggles, I do think that's a situation where you look at calling Baldwin up. Or the other area here, if you somehow lose Marcell Ozuna to injury and the DH spot is open. Because I do believe the roster expectation here in the future, Marcell Ozuna is a free agent after 2025. If you don't bring him back, there is a very easy path to whichever catcher between Drake Baldwin and Sean Murphy is not behind the plate that day can be your DH. And then you can rotate through other guys as you need to. You can rotate through an outfielder. Maybe you want to give Ronald a half day off. He's not playing defense, but he gets the DH for a day. Maybe Matt Olson or Austin Riley or somebody. But I do think your DH position in 2026 is going to be a combination of Sean Murphy and Drake Baldwin. Similar to what you did with Travis d'Arnaud and Contreras. One guy catches, one guy DHs. And it's probably it's probably a little bit more of a timeshare. It's probably an easy 4-2 between Baldwin and Murphy. But their bats are in the lineup almost every day in 26. In 2025, I don't expect to see much of Baldwin unless Sean Murphy struggles again. And you've got to figure out what we can do here. You've got to figure out, hey, what options do we have to find some offense from this position? Then we look at, what do we do here? Now, I do think you may see them go out and look at some of the free agents that are available, but I wouldn't expect any of these guys to sign for significant money. I would go on a limb and say none of these guys probably sign for anything other than a minor league deal. In the minors, in AAA, Drake Baldwin, obviously. Sandy Leon is still with the organization. He was not on the list of minor league free agents. I don't know if they signed him to a multi-year minor league deal, or if he did not elect free agency and re-upped with Atlanta. I don't quite know the logistics of that. But your free agent list is pretty rough, right? Kyle Higashioka, 30. All these guys are in their 30s, right? There's not a single free agent in their 20s. Danny Jansen at 30. He'll probably need too much money. Gary Sanchez, 32. Carson Kelly, 30. Probably a little bit of money. Yasmani Grandal at 36. Elias Diaz at 34. Jacob Stallings at 35. Jan Gomes at 37. Tucker Barnhart at 34. Kurt Casale at 36. Like, none of these guys are exciting, right? Maybe a Danny Jansen. But again, he's probably going to take more money than you want to spend, especially with knowing what you have to do to cover for Strider and Murphy and Jimenez, or Strider and Acuna and Jimenez not being available to start 2025, and for Jimenez probably all year. So maybe you bring in one of these bottom tier veteran catchers, a Luke Maile maybe, a Kurt Casale maybe, on a minor league deal, and you have Baldwin, Leone, and one of those guys in AAA. You did that a lot last year. You had Leone, Baldwin, and Tromp in AAA, and they just rotated through the guys. Gave everybody playtime. That's why Baldwin didn't have as many starts behind the plate as you would have expected, because they had to get Leone in there once or twice a week. They had to get Tromp in there once or twice a week just to keep him fresh. It's entirely possible you bring up one of these guys. I'm pretty likely that you bring in one of these guys on a minor league deal because, again, AA's told us he never wants to be in that 2021 situation again. He thinks you can never have enough depth. And outside of Baldwin and Leone, you don't have anybody else in the organization who either has the prospect pedigree or the major league service time to step in at the major league level should you need that. You have some Rule 5 eligible prospects and some young guys lower in the minors, but you've really not invested in catching outside of Drake Baldwin, who was a third rounder in 2022. And this year, you took a fifth rounder in Nick Montgomery, who's out of high school. He's 19 years old. He's not going to be up in the next couple of seasons. So everybody else in here was either drafted on day 3 of the draft, or they were non-drafted free agents in the organization. You have, according to Fangraphs, you have 9 catchers in the organization, and none of them, outside of Baldwin, Leone, and Montgomery, have any sort of pedigree to speak of. Pedigree or experience to speak of. So it's likely you're going to sign one of these guys. It's probably going to be a minor league deal. They'll come to spring training because you always need lots of catchers at spring training. And odds are, if they stick around, they'll be in AAA Gwinnett for most of the season as an emergency kind of guy. We'll call you up if there's an injury to one of the 2 guys in Atlanta, and we don't want to use Drake Baldwin in this situation. So that's likely the plan there. Are you optimistic about a Sean Murphy rebound? Again, we talked about what you have to do. I'll link that show in the show notes from a couple weeks ago. But let me know what you think. If you're listening on audio, you can tweet at me. I'm on Twitter at Crosby Baseball. Show's on Twitter at Braves_today. You can also email us, contact@bravestoday.com. If you're on YouTube, leave a comment right here down below. Super easy. Either way, whichever platform you're on, if you do us a favor and leave us a 5-star review with some words of affirmation, really does help people discover the show, as well as just makes us feel good that we know what we're talking about. Until next time, this has been Braves Today.